It is my opinion, without any reasonable doubt and without any reservation, that comic books are an important contributing factor in many cases of juvenile delinquency.
Hi, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm your host Emilio, and this is the Comic Chronicles, the show where we talk about comics in a trippy state of mind. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite sci-fi acid trips called Space Riders by Fabian Rangel Jr. and Alexis Ziritt. The main reason I wanted to talk about this one is because it's trippy, but it's also got some of the most ridiculous stories I've ever seen within a 4-issue miniseries. I remember checking this out about 4 years ago, and I just thought it was super trippy and just a fun story to read, and especially a good introduction for people who are stoners but don't necessarily read comics. So the first issue starts with an introduction to the main character named Capitan Peligro, and it starts with him in a mission. He's part of this organization called the Space Riders that's sort of like a military force for space. And in this mission, he gets attacked and he ends up losing an eye. And then after he loses this eye, the robot examines him, basically tells the captain that he can't be a space rider for a year. And so after a year passes, he's found by that robot again, her name Yara. She's also with this monkey named Mono, who's also this monk. I kind of hope that's a great pun on the word monkey. Basically, they convince Capitan Peligro to join the Space Riders again, and they do, and they take off on this ship called La Santa Muerte, which is Spanish for Saint Death, and the ship looks exactly like a calavera, a skull, and so they're flying around in this psychedelic looking skull, and as they're flying, they're being attacked by space Vikings who are also bikers, and they end up calling themselves Vikers. And as the Santa Muerte is being attacked, they escape by going into hyperdrive, and they end up having to go into a wormhole, and then from there they crash into this unknown planet, and that's how the first issue ends with the cliffhanger. And one of the reasons I like the first issue so much is because it set the tone and the pace for how this whole story was going to play out. It's super fast paced, but it's also super trippy to look at, that you're not just trying to race to the end, you're also admiring the artwork for it. So then the second issue picks up exactly where they left off on this forbidden planet, and they get out of the Santa Muerte, and then they're starting to fight monsters, but then as they're fighting the monsters, they come in contact with this super hot looking alien chick. She's got sci-fi alien titties, and she invites them over for dinner to give them hospitality, and then from there, as they're eating, they're going through each other's backstories. So we also get the backstory of Mono, the monkey, who became a monk, and one of the reasons he became a monk was after having a moment of clarity, as he was a gorilla. And I think that was also another great pun with the word gorilla and gorilla. Anyways, after that, it explains the backstory of Yara the robot. And as they're going through each other's backstories, they're having a bonding moment, and after that, once they finish dinner, their ship is repaired, and as they're beginning to leave, they go into outer space, and then they find this giant space whale god, and the god's named Anu Gigantus, and as they're noticing the whale, they're noticing that there are space whalers trying to kill the whale, and the space riders, they start attacking them. But then as they're attacking the space whalers, they're apprehended by the police. And from there, that's how the second issue ends, on another cliffhanger. And one of the reasons that I enjoyed the second issue so much was because it gave us a good backstory for the side characters like Mono and Yara. And I mean, we also got sci-fi alien titties out of this, so overall it was a really good issue. So then the third issue, it picks up right where it left off, where the space riders are fighting these people that are trying to hold them prisoner or hold them in captivity, but it never really specifies like what exactly they're trying to do. But as the Capitan is trying to prove how tough he is, they get released after Mono explains the whole situation, and from there, like these law enforcers ask the space riders if they could go seek out this tomb of the gods, and one of the reasons they want to go after it is because there's this evil force named Satanus that's also after this tomb, and it's sort of like an Ark of the Covenant situation where both the good and the bad guys are trying to get after this sacred tomb that has some sort of mystical power. So then as the space riders are out looking for this tomb, they encounter some of the priests that are in charge of guarding the tomb, and Mono explains how these are the priests of his religion, so it's sort of like his religion is coming in full circle in his eyes. So as the issue's ending, Satanus is sending this character known as Hammerhead out to kill the space riders, which apparently Hammerhead was one of the partners of Capitan Peligro. So one of the things that I really liked about this issue was how the art was done in this one, where it made a whole bunch of the art look super blurry and trippy, all to emphasize the fact that they were going into hyperdrive, but it did it in such a way that it just blended the colors perfectly. So then the fourth and final issue of this miniseries starts with the Hammerhead attacking the ship that was holding the space riders prisoner in the previous issue, and then releasing them for help. And from there, there's this awesome battle of betrayal brought on by Capitan Peligro and Hammerhead. And then from there, it also has a happy ending, but it definitely keeps you wanting for more. And it's also seen at the very end as it ends with Finn and then a question mark. So it definitely sets up for an awesome sequel that was eventually brought to us, called Space Riders Galaxy of Brutality. But that's a whole different story. So to sum it all up, Space Riders is this super trippy, super fast-paced action sci-fi series that definitely has a stoner appeal to it because it's so trippy and it has so many different colors that can only work so beautifully in a sci-fi setting. And then not to mention, we also get a good amount of sci-fi alien titties on top of psychedelic art. So one of the downsides of Space Riders is it's made by a pretty small label known as Black Mask Studios, so chances are you're not going to find hundreds of these issues in your local comic shop. But you can still definitely call your local shop to see if they have a few issues of it, and if not, still definitely check out a lot of the artwork by Alexis Ziritt and the works of Fabian Rangel Jr. So that about wraps it up for us. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm your host Emilio, and join us next time as we take another hit from our comic stash. This is the Comic Chronicles.